we really focus on the front end, or the recruiting and the interviewing process, and setting expectations up front. And simple things like just having a detailed job description, in terms of expectations, and going through that with the individual, I think is really important too, and something that served us well.
Hello, and welcome to the Restoration Playbook Podcast, where the KnowHow team chats with industry experts about how to build a world-class workforce. This month, Travis Martin is talking with Andy Amrhein, CEO and co-founder of Thomasville Restoration, about his experience scaling a team, attaining an impressive 357% growth in just 3 years. If you want to hear more conversations like this one, be sure to hit subscribe and head over to tryknowhow.com/resources for free reports, ebooks, and webinars built for busy restoration leaders. At KnowHow, we want to help your team move forward with confidence as you scale your operations. That's why our easy-to-use app helps you build, maintain, and share standard operating procedures and other key information across your workforce to equip your staff with the skills they need to tackle whatever job is next. Join Travis live on February 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to learn the organizational habits and practices today's most innovative restoration companies are using to drive process adoption and adherence day in and day out. Find the link to register in our show notes. Now over to Travis and Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Amrhein, CEO and co-owner of Thomasville Restoration, and this is how I think about building leaders.
Andy, I'm really excited to jump into this discussion today. I think that you guys have done an awesome job leading the pack in the restoration industry when it comes to creating a unique workplace culture. Obviously, there's the whole brand thing that you guys are among the forefront as well. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into all of those, but to get things started, can you give us a bit of a background? I've heard this story before, but some of the people who are listening may not have. How did you end up in the position where you're at in Thomasville?
Yeah, our founder, Tom Neidert, and I have been friends for 22 years. And so I met through my wife. They grew up together, graduated from high school. So Tom and I have been friends for a long time. And, when I told him I was thinking about doing something different, it was about 5 years ago. I spent 12 years at Under Armour helping build them from $600 million North America company to a $5.5 billion global company. But I was ready to go do something different, ready to go build something else. I really love the process of building, growing. So when I reached out to Tom and let him know that I was going to be leaving Under Armour, first he asked me what the heck was I thinking, right? Because it's the crown jewel in the Baltimore market. Everyone loves to work there, and I had a great experience. But ultimately, then the conversation turned to, man, we should really use this as an opportunity to do something together. And when I looked at Thomasville, although it was very small, it definitely was a diamond that I think just needed a little bit of polishing. And the guts were there. The passion for helping families put homes and lives back together already existed. Thomasville touch, our white glove service, wrapping our arms around these families that have had their entire worlds turned upside down, that already existed. And I thought, wow, like we really already have something here. We've got some critical mass. We've got processes. We've got an existing team, and having an opportunity to take something like that and take it to the next level was very exciting and appealing to me. And to have an opportunity to do that with one of my very best friends, and have that fun as we kind of climb Restoration Mountain was something that was just really exciting. So once we aligned on terms for me, buying half the company, walked in the door in beginning of 2020, and we put together an initial vision, to become the number one restoration company in the Mid-Atlantic region, which at the time, was a pretty big, daunting challenge. And, it was reasonable enough, but a big enough stretch that, it would be challenging for our team, but it would also be, believable, attainable, for the company that existed. Um, Definitely didn't want to come in and paint a vision that was so grand that I think people, uh, just weren't able to kind of grab onto it and say, yeah, that's achievable or attainable. You always want to make sure that you set challenging goals, but make sure that they're achievable for your team so that you can get their buy-in and you really get their hearts and minds. So that's where we started. We started with an initial growth plan to get to uh, 25 million, within 5 years. And at the time in 2019, the company had did just over $7 million. So that was pretty bold and audacious. And, we thought that was going to take at least 5 years, but we wanted to challenge ourselves to be able to do that. Um, Interesting enough, we were able to get there in just 3 years.
Hmm.
And, we end up having to move the goalpost out, right? So now we're working on a 5-year plan that gets us to 50 million, and we're 2 years into that. And I feel like we're going to get there a lot sooner. So, um, ultimately, how does that happen? Right. I think, it really all boils down to the leadership in the company. And,
Oh,
and really where Tom and I started, we knew our number one priority was building the leadership team, right, for Thomasville. And so over the first 18 months, that I walked in the door, we really spent probably about half of our time recruiting, interviewing, uh, for the top leadership team. And we had put together an org chart in terms of how we wanted to structure the leadership team, how we wanted to put together our operating model to be able to grow and scale quickly. Uh, and we really spent a lot of time interviewing candidates, uh, meticulous in that approach, spending a lot of time with them, making sure that they were hungry enough, humble, uh, really wanted to be builders, because if you go work at a bigger company, it's a little bit different than building something from relative scratch.
hmm.
Uh, and you have to find people that are up for that challenge and want to put their own fingerprints all over, you know, the clay, that you're molding. And what we were selling was an opportunity to be part of building something great, to take all the knowledge, expertise that you had and bring it to Thomasville and be able to, have it be uniquely yours. So we have extreme ownership at the executive level. We give all of our leaders a ton of autonomy, to create their plans. Of course, we align on the investments it's going to take to win, but we give them a ton of autonomy. And ultimately, my job is to paint the vision for the company, uh, make sure I have the right leaders in place, whether that's hiring from the outside or preparing and developing, leaders to be able to move up into those positions internally. And then ultimately making sure that they have everything that they need to be able to achieve, their plans and execute on them. That's my job.
What I hear you saying, Andy, is that in the early days, the most critical tasks that you had was set a vision that people can rally around that is higher than what they thought they could achieve, but not impossible. And then invest a ton of time in getting the leadership team to be the right mix. Like when you were saying 50% of your time and also building out all these methods, all these processes, I think of the fact that, hey, we're in an industry that's very reactive and everyone's got a plan until a hurricane punches them in the face. And all of a sudden they throw all those plans out. How are you able to dedicate and wall off so much time to like the important but not always urgent work? of creating a strong leadership team when there's so many other competing priorities and there's so many reasons, good justifiable reasons to be pulled in a different direction?
Personal sacrifice,
Hmm.
right? Ultimately, I have a incredible wife at home who has been with me for 30 years, uh, incredible, children that, appreciate the passion that I have for, you know, being great at whatever I'm doing. And they share that passion as well as whatever we're doing. Let's be great at it. And, there comes a little bit of personal sacrifice for that, but there's a lot of rewards for it as well. The intrinsic satisfaction of doing great things, you know, creating opportunities for others, you know, always giving of myself, my time, to help those leaders develop and help them accomplish the things that they're being asked to do. Uh, and so, I always kind of think about, eating last, sleeping last, um, but that kind of inspires me, you know. So if I'm a little short on sleep, but my team's, gotten what they need and they're doing well, then that kind of adds fuel to my tank that maybe I might be missing on the sleep side. But um, I love to see the team do well and achieve their goals and do great things for themselves, their families. That's what kind of being in growth mode, and growing the company so quickly, has created opportunities for our team to grow, take on new challenging responsibilities. Of course, with more responsibility, comes, more compensation, that's commensurate with what we're asking them to do. And so, to be able to see people grow, professionally, personally, and their families, be able to benefit directly from that and be able to achieve some things that maybe they didn't even think were possible for them, is very rewarding. And like I
Mhm.
said, it puts fuel in my tank. So uh, it's,
Yeah.
that's what.
I also hear, in addition to that sacrifice, like the discipline too, to know, hey, what is a priority right now and what's not a priority? What is something that either can wait, a fire I'm just going to let burn for a little while, or something I can hand off to someone else. And ultimately, if I've only got X amount of hours in the day, and maybe I can, squeeze that a little bit to get a little bit more juice out of it. But ultimately, where am I going to spend my time? And it sounds like you picked your battles on the team and on the vision side, maybe more than some other owners who feel trapped in the cycle of just putting out fires.
Yeah, well, you have to have the courage to hire the very best leaders under you that are going to challenge you, that may even be better than you. And quite frankly, if I look at myself, I'm coming from outside the industry, going out and hiring very experienced executives from other larger restoration companies and painting a vision for them on, why would you want to do that? Right. And it's an opportunity to do something special, to be part of building something great and have your fingerprints all over that. So having the courage to go out and hire great people allows myself and my partner, Tom, to really be able to kind of stay, out of the weeds, uh, especially nowadays more than maybe 4 years ago when the company was much smaller. So it allows us to stay at the right level that we need to be able to stay to make sure that we're doing our jobs well, and the things that we need to be focused on to be able to kind of paint that path forward, to 50 and $100 million. Uh, so that's really what it's about is if you hire great leaders under you that oftentimes are smarter than you, have more experience than you, have the courage to do that, that allows you to kind of elevate and be able to see the big picture instead of getting sucked into the weeds where, you're constantly, you know, in the grind every
Mhm.
day. Uh, and quite frankly, at this point, when Tom and I sometimes, um, feel the urge because we're missing being in the weeds or being, close to the front lines, a lot of times our team will just push us aside and say, we got this.
Mhm.
We need you guys, staying up in a few levels. We need you guys looking out up ahead and seeing the forest from the trees. So, it's great to have leaders like that. It's human nature. Like, when Tom and I, we don't mind getting our hands dirty, so we're fine. We're builders as well. Um, but what we're finding is as we're getting bigger, we need to spend more of our time on, path forward, right? And making sure we can see clearly where we're going, what it's going to take to get there, continue to recruit, continue to bring in the best leaders, on new opportunities that we see for Thomasville, uh, you know, so
So I think every owner, every leader would say, "Yeah, I would love to have a really strong leadership team." The path to getting there, I think, is sometimes not as clear. And so when you came in and said, "Hey, my first biggest priority I'm gonna spend a ton of time on is really meticulously picking the right leaders that I think will help us accomplish this vision." How did you know, like, I guess maybe a better inverse question is, like, what was an example of someone that you said, "This is not a leader that's going to be a good fit here?" What were you looking for, and what were you saying, if these are your qualities, you're not a bad person, you're just not a good fit for Thomasville."
yeah, I think if people are looking for a 9 to 5,
Hmm,
if they are looking for work-life balance, um, you know, this is probably not a good fit for them. It doesn't mean that they're not good people, but when you are, trying to build something, from ground up at a rapid pace, it takes a level of commitment that, some people, um, it doesn't fit for them. And that's totally fine. I have a lot of friends that, they're having family dinners every night at 5 o'clock. And, so that's one style, and one approach. And, so for me, I'm always looking for people that, have that support at home, um, in terms of the, supporting their careers, uh, and people that are hungry, people that want to build something and understand that, you know, if you're willing to make that level of commitment, you know, that there are ultimately rewards, both intrinsic, just feeling, that level of success and that, hey, I did that. I built that. Obviously on the compensation side, you got to take care of the people. You got to feed your lions, so the people that are really, getting after it and, you know, pushing forward as we're climbing a steep mountain against a very competitive landscape. You got to make sure that you take care of the people that are critical, and that are pushing and leading us up that mountain. So um, I think if or when I've heard people say the word "I" too often instead of "we," that's really a red flag for me. In an interview process, I want to hear people talk about the team. I clearly know that if you're a senior leader for another organization, that there's a lot of things that you're doing, but I want to hear about how the teams perform, what your team accomplished, how you helped your team, in terms of, so I really cue in on those types of words and the way people describe, you know, their accomplishments or their team's accomplishments. And, are they constantly pointing at themselves, right? Are they taking all the credit or do they deflect, and kind of give the credit to the team? And so I look for that type of humility, and also I like to know what people think they're not good at, and hopefully they're self-aware enough to know that they are not good at everything and are able to articulate, a couple of things that they would like to be able to do better, or just gaps that maybe they haven't been able to solve through personal development, but they were smart enough to go out and hire people, right, that add that skill set or that experience, to be able to fill those gaps. And, I think the best leaders will go out and hire people that aren't mirror images of themselves. They'll go out and hire people that are different, have different perspectives, different backgrounds, different experiences. And, I think that makes the entire team and organization stronger. Certainly has made me better. And also look for leaders that, are willing to challenge. Yes, I'm the CEO, but I demand that, the Thomasville leadership team, right, the TLT level, that they challenge respectfully, of course. But we have some heated debates during our weekly leadership meetings, and you know, and those are some of the best meetings that we have, and we get to good outcomes, good alignment. We always say we may not all agree, but we're always going to align, and we're always going to have each other's backs. And we also know that we're going to make some mistakes along the way, and we're going to have some failures, but we're going to use those as learning opportunities to get better. Um, we're not going to use those as opportunities to beat each other up, or to point in someone's face and say, "Hey, I told you so," or "I told you I didn't think that was the right thing to do." So, that's not what we do. So we have a set of core operating principles, and one of those is to, challenge respectfully and make sure that we are listening to one another, not interrupting during meetings, hear people out. Uh, and ultimately, even when we don't agree, we got to make sure we're all aligned, and that when we break the huddle, that we all have each other's backs and we're all speaking from the same playbook and executing the same play. Because if our teams outside, see division or leaders that are not on board with a direction or a strategic initiative, that kind of undermines everything. So, and our leadership team does a great job of keeping that alignment, even when we don't have 100% agreement. And sometimes we're doing things that Tom and I don't even agree with, but we trust our team. And I think that's really important too, is that ultimately, if the consensus is, from the very experienced, leadership team that we've assembled, is something slightly different than maybe what Tom or I would have selected in terms of a course of action, oftentimes we'll just go with them, because it's like, that's why we brought them here. Right. I mean, they certainly know more than me. And most of them are a lot more experienced in the restoration side than Tom, even though, Tom has spent, 20 years, in home remodeling, construction. It was Thomasville Homes before it was Thomasville Restoration. So he certainly has a lot of experience on the construction side of home building. But when it comes to restoration, our leadership team has a lot more experience than we do. So, trusting the team that you built, I think is really important, in empowering them. And I think they really appreciate that.
I love that quote. I wrote it down. We may not always agree, but we're going to align. I think that's a great example of, hey, like internally, let's wrestle as we need to, but we're walking out of that leadership meeting aligned, and we have each other's back for the best of the company. One area that I wanted to dive in just a little bit deeper, Andy, and then I've got a few rapid fire questions to close things out, is you talked about this the sacrifice that is required, and I think you're modeling it, but it, obviously goes beyond you to the leadership team and down to the employees as well when you're looking for who's going to be the right fit to join the Thomasville team, and when you're building that next layer of leadership. I would think that over time, then one thing that could happen is just, great sacrifice and great discomfort is hard to sustain over the course of months or years, right? You could amp yourself up for a short period maybe, but sustaining a culture that just asks a lot of people, it probably becomes hard when an employee is year 3, year 4, year 5. And so how have you guys been able to just sustain that culture of excellence, especially in like particularly challenging periods without, running people ragged in the process?
Well, I really think it all goes back to, our recruiting and hiring process and making sure that we are being very candid with, regardless of the level or position, being very candid with candidates about what we're trying to achieve at Thomasville. And then if you're looking for a job, this this is definitely not the place for you. But if you're looking for an opportunity to grow and do great things and be part of a great team, right? And be part of something special, then this is an opportunity for you. And literally, we don't even care if we try to scare people off, you know, and we have sometimes, but at least we don't make bad hiring decisions because people aren't really committed to, you know, our our mission of helping families put their homes and lives back together, or really understand the level of commitment that it takes when you're trying to build, a great restoration company in a crowded marketplace with much bigger competitors, very competitive environment, in a 24/7 business, right? These types of events happen. They don't know what time of day it is. They definitely don't know what day of the week, right? So when you're in this type of business, we have to be ready at all times. So we spend a lot of time, you know, really getting to the essence of why Thomasville, and they have to be able to articulate why Thomasville is a place that they want to work. And so we listen. And when we are interviewing, hiring manager is very methodical in terms of the stakeholders, right, that are represented on the interview panel, right? We want to make sure all the key stakeholders, people that are going to be interacting, working with these folks, uh, are part of the interview panel, right, at the leadership level. And and so that gives us a nice cross section of different perspectives on cultural fit. Are they really committed to what we're trying to do? Do they really share a passion, right, for helping families put homes and lives back together? And I think that's really important, right? Because when you have a culture that's built around operational excellence and a desire to be great, we have to make sure that we are hiring people that also have that same DNA. And so I think that goes a long way in terms of, you know, eliminating or minimizing the number of hiring mistakes that we make when people get on board. They happen. People present well. They'll look at Thomasville and be like, man, I want to be part of that. And they'll be able to articulate that they are willing to give 110% and they want to, they want to be part of building something special, but then they'll get here and it'll be too much, it'll be too hard. It's not what they were looking for. And so we've made some higher mistakes, but we really focus on the front end, or the recruiting and the interviewing process, and setting expectations up front, uh, you know, and simple things like just having a detailed job description, in terms of expectations, and going through that with the individual, I think is really important too, and something that served us well. Uh,
That's great. It reminds me of the company Zappos, the shoe company Zappos, where they would famously pay somebody in their interview process $1,000 to walk away. Like, basically, they'd say, "Hey, like, if you want off this ship, this is the best time for you to tell us that you are not gonna be a team member anymore." But,
Like,
yeah, similarly, right? Like, "Hey, like, you gotta know exactly what it means to work at Thomasville, and we don't want any surprises. This is not for everyone, and we
yeah,
wanna give you the chance to self-select out at this stage."
yeah. I think, so I think that's on the front end, and I think beyond that, with the team that we have assembled, it's about recognition. It's about celebrating their accomplishments. It's about giving, feedback. And, we have mid-year uh, reviews. We have year-end, performance reviews, so kind of giving that feedback along the way on how people are doing. And then, we do a lot of things to make sure that we're giving back, to the people that are helping us climb this mountain. Um, you know, the recognition is one piece of it. Um, we also have, events throughout the course of the year where we really try to go over the top on those and make sure that those are really good events where, the teammates' family, extended family are invited, to participate in those things like our Christmas party. We have a annual family picnic. Um, those we also do family events, 4 or 5 times a year where we'll go to, indoor Autobahn racing track and allow teammates to bring their family, their kids, to be able to participate in, what mommy and daddy are heavily involved in, at Thomasville, and be part of the culture. And, you know, what really kind of strikes my heart sometimes is when I see the kids, where they're demanding that they get a Thomasville shirt. They just want to
Mhm.
wear the Thomasville shirt and be part of the brand, and they want to feel like they're part of something special as well. And so that's always great to see. They just want to wear that Thomasville shirt. So we keep Thomasville shirts in all sizes, all the way down to infants. Um, and it's always great to see that the families are outfitting their kids in Thomasville gear, and how the kids kind of feel, inspired and like superheroes when they're wearing the Thomasville, gear. So that's always great to see. But we constantly are giving back, um, you know, to our team and trying to create, you know, yeah, trying to create an environment, where they feel like they're part of something special, and that their families at home can see that, we appreciate all the hard work that they're putting in to make this thing happen.
I want to just close this pardon me. I want to close this section just by summarizing what I've heard. It's actually so crystal clear in my mind, Andy, over the course of this interview, which is there is a direct correlation between the things that I think the industry, and at least I'll just speak for myself, I see as Thomasville is excellent at, and the things that you are investing heavy amounts of time and energy into. It's not an accident that you have a strong leadership team. You've talked about just how painstaking you've thought through establishing a strong leadership team. It's not an accident that people think of Thomasville as a family, because I've seen what your events look like, and just the way that you talk about them. These are not, "Hey everyone, just bring a sandwich and we'll borrow some tables from the community center." Like, this is like, we are investing heavily into this because we want people to feel like a family. I think your brand is a great example as well. This is not just, yeah, we'll pick up some t-shirts and slap a logo on it. There is care and attention and thought. And so it's not surprising that you reap what you sow, and where you're putting your time and energy into is where you're seeing the biggest amount of dividends. And so I think that that's so crystal clear over the course of this interview. I've got two rapid fire questions for you. So the first one is, I want to know, are there any like timeless truths, slogans, mottos, like things that have stuck with you as a North Star, as a leader, that you've held on to as you've grown in your journey as a leader up to this point?
Well, one is stay humble and hungry. And so no matter how much, success, you know, uh, you have, it's always important to celebrate those, but also remain humble and really your success, right? And everything that comes along with that is directly related to the team around you. And so I think always reflecting, right, any type of attention and credit, to the team is really important. And remaining humble, uh, I think is key. And as long as you remain humble and hungry, I think nothing's impossible. And I think just a sense of humility from leaders, no matter how successful they are, I think goes a long way. I think, that level of humility with leaders goes a long way and is recognized by the broader team, that, they respect, and it really helps your ability to lead, an organization when they see a level of hunger and drive, but also a sense of humility that, you know, hey, I'm really just one of you. I'm doing my job.
Mm.
I'm right there with you.
Last question that I have, Andy, what advice or feedback or a lesson did a leader give to you over the years that has stuck with you and helped guide you as you're leading others now?
Stay true to who you are. A lot of times I think I'll see young leaders, look up to uh, more experienced leaders and they'll try to emulate, you know, those things. And that's fine. We can all learn from the people around us. And I certainly have. Um, but at times in my career, I worked for leaders that um, wanted me to be more like them. And when I tried to be more like them, I came across as awkward and I was always tripping, and I was always having to go back and clean things up. And a lot of times I wasn't as productive, wasn't as, efficient. And so, had a great leader during my time at Under Armour, still really good friends with today, that allowed me just to be myself, right? And use my own personal style to get things done. And instead of uh, asking me to be more like him, you know, um, so I think that's really important is just be true to who you are. Leadership comes in all different sizes, shapes, forms. Uh, there's not one personality that results in better leaders than another. I think ultimately, if you put the team at the forefront of everything that you do, and your job is to put the right team in place, make sure that we align on what the goal and the plans are, and then make sure that they have everything that they need to achieve those. That's my job, and ultimately doing it true to, staying true to my style and who I am. I think, has made me a more authentic leader instead of trying to be somebody else that I might have seen be successful, doing things a different way. Uh,
Awesome. Awesome. Andy, I appreciate you giving us the time to chat. Tons of really good stuff here, but I for me the biggest takeaway is where you'll reap what you sow, and where you put that energy, you'll see the results of it. I think that's why Thomasville has seen uh just has a reputation as strong leadership, strong brand, strong team culture, because it's very evident in these conversations that that's something of critical importance, and it's not just something you say about, it's something that you put a lot of energy and effort into. So, Andy, I appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to hear more from KnowHow, subscribe wherever you're listening. And don't forget to register to join Travis for a live discussion about the organizational habits and practices today's most innovative restoration companies are using to drive process adoption and adherence day in and day out. Find the link in our show notes or visit tryknowhow.com/resources for more advice for busy restoration leaders. Until next time.